Hey there, it's Olivia-Savannah here from Olivia's Catastrophe and welcome to Half the Haul episode 2. If you don't know what Half the Haul is, this is a video series I do on my channel where I try to read half of the books that I've hauled in the past month. There are some rules and some regulations to this and ways in which I can dodge reading half the haul. So if you'd like to know more about the game that I'm about to play, please check out this video down below or up here where I talk about my 2026 TBR challenges, of which this is one of them. And in the month of January, I hauled in an astonishing 53 books. These are the 53 books that I hauled in January. If you'd like to hear more about them, I've already shared my January haul video, so there'll be a link to that down below and also up here once again for you to check out. But without further ado, it's important and it's time for me to tell you of these 53 books. These are the books that I have already read. I have already read Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens, A Christmas Carol and Other Writings, Great Expectations, Bleak House and Hard Times, all by Charles Dickens, Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte, Enchanting the Fay Queen by Stephanie Burgess, Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo, and Dune by Frank Herbert. And now we're gonna see if I truly have to half the haul or if I can 25% the haul and read from my shelves behind me as well. This will all come down to whether I roll the number that my sibling Simi is about to choose for me. So let's go and ask Simi what number I need to roll. Hi Simi.
Hi.
Would you be able to do me a favour and choose a number between 1 and 6?
Yeah. I'm gonna choose 5.
You're gonna choose 5? Okay, thank you. Okay, pray for me as I now head over to roll this dice. I need it to please land on a 5. Okay, this is kind of a weird angle in my room to be in, but I wanted you to be able to see my reaction and to see me roll this dice. And it's not a flat surface, but hopefully it counts. I just really need a 5. I really need a 5. It would mean a lot to me if this dice would roll a 5. Okay. Let's do it! Oh my gosh! I don't know if you can see this. I rolled a 5! Yes! I'm so unbelievably happy that I rolled a 5! Yes! Undeniably a 5. Upside down, but 'tis a 5. 'Tis a 5. So while I'm happy that I just rolled a 5, because we're splitting 53, which is an odd number, I'm gonna roll again, and if I get an even number, it means I need to read as if I'm splitting 55, and if I get an odd number, it means I need to read as if I'm splitting 52. So what we are going for here now is odd number is what I want, because then it's even less fun. So this time it's less important for you to see my face and my reaction, so you're just gonna see my roll and what I get for my roll. If it's an odd or an even number, let's hope for an odd one. Odd number! And it's a 5 again. Oh my goodness, you're gonna think this is rigged. But now I only need to split 52 books. I'm honestly still in shock. I honestly can't believe it, but half the haul was just so kind to me. So because of the fact that I rolled an odd number, I need to half a haul of the number 52. So I needed to read for 26 books to half the haul, but because I rolled a 5, which unlocks my caveat superpower, I then only have to read half of half the haul, which 26 halved is 13, but because of the fact that I've already read 9 of the books in my haul, that leaves me with only 4 books to read to finish this half the haul episode, which is so kind because I was preparing myself to read 26 books and it's ended up that I only need to read 4. Now the other caveat to having this superpower is that I don't have to read 4 books from my haul. I am now allowed and have unlocked the shelf behind me, the shelves behind me, as well as the ones by my desk, and I don't have to read 4 books from the haul. I can read 4 books from wherever I want on my bookshelf, which means I could choose 4 novellas or 4 really short books or 4 graphic novels. However, I am not going to do so, because if you watched my haul video, you'll know that 3 of the books that are in my haul for this month are proofs, which are advanced reader copies. Because I'm trying to do a little bit better about reading my proofs before they release, I am going to be reading the 3 proofs that are in my haul for this vlog, so I can already tell you my TBR. It's One Leg on Earth by Pemi Aguda, Good Loving by Yvette Edwards, and then also If I Ruled the World by DuBois Barnett. And the nice thing about this is all three of these are by black authors. I also have decided that for my fourth book, even though I could still go to my shelves, I am not going to, and I'm going to read another book from my haul. So I'm still reading from my haul, and that is going to be Cursed Daughters by Oyinkan Braithwaite. This is because in a couple of days, like a bit more than a week, I'm going to a book club for this particular book. I haven't read it yet, so this will be the very first thing I read, and the author herself will be present at that book club, so it just makes sense for me to read this. And so what that means is that this Half the Haul episode for the month of February, which is Black History Month over in the US, I'll actually be participating by reading all black authors for this Half the Haul episode, and that makes me very, very happy. We are here to get into my first reading update for this Half the Haul vlog. So I am halfway through reading Cursed Daughters by Oyinkan Braithwaite. I started this one first because it's the one I have book club for, so I absolutely need to read it. And the good thing is I'm absolutely whizzing through this and having a brilliant time. I'm actually having such a busy time with work and such a terrible time with sleep. So if this vlog is scarce on the b-roll, it's because I'm just really struggling with my insomnia and it's slowing me down for absolutely everything that I'm doing. My motivation is low. My mood is low, everything is low, because I'm just not getting enough sleep every night. I'm actually on coffee right now, which is how I'm here in front of you, because I have energy now. Cursed Daughters is about this woman who becomes cursed. She's cursed for being a second wife to another man, and that curse is passed down to the generations. It's supposedly a generational curse that has been sealed by blood, that none of these women will be able to hold down their man, their person, whoever they choose. So they are fated to be alone forever. And this curse, you either believe in it or you don't. And this is a family saga in a way. It's like a black family saga where you see these different women from different generations dealing with this curse and whether they believe in it or not, and the consequences of it or not in their love lives. But I need to tell you right now, this is not written in the way that any family saga I've read has been written in before. I don't typically pick up family sagas unless there's something very distinctively interesting about the book, because I do not really like it. I'm a character-driven reader, and I struggle with the fact that I get very invested in a certain character and we follow them for their whole lives, and then that's it. We move to the next generation and they're kind of gone or in the periphery, and we're supposed to focus on the next generation and then the next. Like, I really struggle with that moving through the generations and then leaving a favourite character behind at the beginning of the book and not really getting to see them again. This book doesn't do that at all. So yes, we are following 3 different generations of women, and we also get to see some of the ancestors and their experiences, but it's jumping around in the timeline. It does this in a very clear and distinctive way. There's a page break, it says we're in this person's point of view from these years, and we go back and forth. Sometimes we're following this woman, sometimes we're following her daughter, sometimes we're following the grandmas, but when they are adults. So it really is jumping over the timeline, and I think that's working so very well actually, because the way that it's weaving together this story is that it starts at the end. We start with a tragic, really heartbreaking scene, and we don't understand why the character has done what they have done in that particular scene, and then we go back in the generations and you can kind of see, slowly piece together what has happened to each of the women and how they've raised their daughters to then have the moment happen that is going to happen. There's a lot more to it, but I don't want to give anything away because, yeah, there's a lot about curses and generational curses, but while there is a curse that is shown to you, possibly there's another supernatural curse element involved as well. I think that's pretty much all I can say. So even though this is quite literary in terms of the fact that it's a family saga and it fits into that genre and we are following characters through their lives, it does still feel like it has quite a few elements of like the magical. What do we believe? Do we believe this is real? Do we not? What would we do if we were placed in these circumstances with these odds given to us? And I really like being in every single woman's head because they are all women who are black, who are living in Lagos, and who are experiencing it very differently. And you can see that the generations face dating and love life and the supernatural differently based on who they are and when they were raised and how they were raised. Finding it particularly interesting to see points of view of characters who, when they're older, act a certain way, but we see them also as teenagers because we do jump around the timeline, and you can see how much they've changed from a teenager to an adult, and you're just wondering like what has happened to them that have made them how they are as an adult. So that is very fascinating. I've read My Sister the Serial Killer by this author before, and that one is more thriller leaning, more thriller literary. This is more family saga literary, and that one has very short chapters, which makes it a very pacey thriller-like read. And surprisingly, that writing style has carried over here, while this one is a little bit more descriptive in tone and literary in that sense. It's still got quite short chapters, so I'm still whizzing through it. Even though it's not a thriller in the slightest, it can read as easily as one, which I'm again really enjoying because it just makes this a joy to read and I can fly through it. So yeah, I'm having a very good time with Cursed Daughters, halfway, which is good. I do need to finish it this weekend though because book club is on Tuesday, so you'll get to see that too. We are here because I have finished reading Cursed Daughters by Oyinkan Braithwaite, and I gave this 5 stars. 5 stars. My third 5-star read of this year. This was so good that I finished reading it during my Patreon reading sprints for my teacups and my Catastrophe tier, and I could not leave it there. I phoned my sister April, who I've been buddy reading this one with, and I was like, we need to discuss and debrief because we need to talk about this. And this is just everything I love in a family saga kind of book. It has so many hints and so much that you can unpack and discuss, and I'm so excited to go to book club for this one tomorrow because I do think there is so much that we can pick apart. There are so many symbolic moments, like full circle, a lot of, you know, a lot around reincarnation and fate and breaking out of patterns and trauma and generational cycles, and it's just so clever. I love when books have different perspectives of different people throughout different times of their lives, and how when I went to one woman's perspective I completely agreed with them in everything that they were doing and choosing to do, but then we saw it from somebody else's perspective and I was like, I can see why they're doing that, but from this person's perspective it's all wrong, it's so painful and it's so hurtful. And so I agreed with pretty much all of the women that we were following because I could feel and understand and relate to each and every single one of them. And I don't begrudge any of them their decisions, even though ultimately it ended up causing hurt amongst certain people. I wouldn't say that this book has anything particularly surprising in it. It's not unpredictable. You kind of figure things out because the author leaves you clues so that you can figure out kind of what's happening, and there's hints at what has been occurring. But the best thing about it is that once you figure things out, you get to wait for the moment where everything is going to explode, and so you feel that sense of anticipation, that sense of, oh, this is coming, and then it comes, and it was worth the payoff. And I was really thinking about the ending of this book because so much happens. I was like, how is this going to wrap up? And yet the author managed to wrap things up in a way that I found very satisfying and settle the story in a way where at the end I was like, okay, that's the perfect way to end this story. That is the perfect finale for this. And so I can fault this book for nothing. I think all of the representation was really good. This book is set in Lagos, and other than the like tribal elements and the supernatural elements, I don't think there is much about this book that's like, this is a culture book and like pushing elements of the culture, but it's woven in there. You know, the fact that they do speak the different languages, the different tribal languages, the fact that the setting is really imbued in the story and what they do and how they live their lives, and the fact that there's so much pressure on them to find a partner, to have children. That's like the be-all and end-all of their role as women in this society and community. That's all woven into the story expertly, but that is not what the story is about at the same time. And so I like how the setting and the culture interacted with the story but didn't overtake the story for what it was worth. Such a fantastic book. I could talk about it for longer because I have so many thoughts on it, but that excitingly moves me on to our next read, which I didn't bring with me for this filming segment because I am clearly an amateur who has never vlogged before. But I can show you on the screen. The next book that I'll be reading is One Leg on Earth, and this one is a short novel about pregnant women in Lagos who all seem to be stepping into water, and it's about why these women are doing it. That's all I know, and it sounds very mysterious, and I'm very, very curious, and it's also not too long a book, so I'm hoping I'll be able to whiz right through it once I get the chance to start reading. Hi. Oh my gosh, it has been so long since I updated this vlog, but I'm very excited to do an update this morning. It is Saturday morning. I'm coming to you a long time after my last update. It's been a big break. The main thing is that in the entirety of 2026, insomnia has been absolutely kicking my butt, and in February it just got to the point where I couldn't even really properly function, work, and keeping up with all the like events and after work stuff that I have in life was the maximum that I could do. I was at my limit. But finally, for the first time in 2026, I've been having good sleep. I've had 3 to 4 nights of very decent sleep, and yesterday I got 7 hours unbroken sleep, which is just so rare for me. I usually wake up at least once or twice a night, so 7 hours directly is absolutely amazing, and I feel so alive. Is this how the other half live? Like, is this how they feel every day? Because I cannot process how awake I feel, and this morning has just been great. I woke up, I did my workout, I had a shower, I even went on a walk, a 20-minute walk, and for me that is very rare because I don't like walking without an end destination. I want to be going somewhere, and I do walk a lot because it's a walk to get to my nearest station, so I walk pretty much every day, but I just don't like walking without having somewhere to go unless it's a hike and like a very long walk. But I went walking and I gave myself an end destination. I gave myself the shops, and because I'm in such a good mood this morning, I treated myself. Dried mango, that is my treat for myself. I love dried mango. I got my hair done. It's now pink at the tips, so it's black into pink, and it is a style that I've never done before, where there's a mix of cane row and then a mix of like singles and then some curls at the front. This is a very new style for me, but my sis did have it once. Like, look at that patterning. Oh, my hairdresser is so good, and I actually really like it. There's a lot to being comfortable in a hairstyle, and there's a lot of hairstyles that are not very comfortable, but I really like the aesthetic, and so I do them anyway. And you need to care about your edges and protective hairstyles. There's a whole load that goes in, but this style has literally everything. It's a protective hairstyle for my hair. I like the aesthetic, I like how it looks, and it's also very easy for me to put up and put back for when I'm doing my workouts, which is very important to me, and not all of my hairstyles are good for me to put my hair back for workouts. Then the other thing that happened was I went to the Candid Book Club's Cursed Daughters book club with my sis, and oh my goodness, it was so lovely. We all sat in a circle, we all discussed the book, Oyinkan was there, and it was mostly black people in the room. It was not entirely a black book club, but the atmosphere was so good. It was so lovely, and there were a lot of Yoruba people there, which was very interesting to hear their opinion on a book that has a lot of Yoruba culture and mythology in it. And Oyinkan was just so wise, and she highlighted elements of the book that I didn't even notice. There was so much that went into the writing of that book, and I really just enjoyed how the book club went. I even put my hand up to speak multiple times. I felt very comfortable in that environment, and getting to meet her and just say how great her books were was really lovely. And so I definitely recommend the Candid Book Club if you're in London, and I will definitely go again. I think for me, because I have to read so much on deadline for work, it's going to be dependent on, you know, what their book pick is, and if it's something I already have and I'm already planning to read, then I might go again. So yeah, that was a really great time. And then the last thing I want to check in on is that I went to Twilight live in concert. Now if you've seen Half the Hall Part 1, you'll know that I'd watched Twilight just 1 week ago with my sisters, but this I went to with some friends, and I wore my brand new Hoa 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 jumper that I got for my birthday, and it was actually fantastic. I can't recommend this more. It's just like being with your fandom, with your community over something very particular is so entertaining. And someone came on right before it started and was like, this is a concert, you know, it's not just watching Twilight with a live band and live orchestra playing all the music and a live singer singing all the songs. It's also a concert. So when someone comes on the screen that you enjoy, cheer out loud. If someone says something that you love, cheer out loud. And it was just fantastic because literally every time characters came on the screen, everybody was like woo and cheering and clapping and hollering. When people said iconic lines like how you like in the rain, girl, or hold on tight, spider monkey, or just any iconic scene, there was like cheering. Even people were saying the lines along with the film. Like, how long have you been 17? A while. Like, everybody was saying that along with the film. So if it's your first time watching Twilight, don't go to Twilight in concert. But if you're a fangirl who knows the film inside out, this was the best way to watch it. I don't think I noticed how much music plays in the film until I heard like every single thing played out loud. The musicians killed it, the singer killed it. It was so funny hearing ha 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 sang out loud. And the last thing I'm going to say about this is that whenever Mike was on screen, it was funny because we cheered for the appearance of almost everybody, but whenever Mike came on, absolute silence. Like, the fandom was united, no cheering. So that was great. Renee even got some boos, which are very much deserved. But all of that aside, it's time to talk about the book, because I am halfway through reading One Leg on Earth by Pemi Aguda, and I have to say, I have not read her short story collection, which is her debut, but you can tell that this is a short story writer because the writing is so decadent. The writing is so descriptive and beautiful, and at times metaphorical. It's still grounded in the real world, but the descriptions she's giving for everyday things and the smallest things that you wouldn't think to have such a beautiful description for just goes to show that her attention to detail is impeccable. I think I told you the synopsis of this, what it says on the back, that pregnant women are walking into water, and I want to be honest with you, that is definitely a marketer or an editor coming up with a way to word this so that it's less provoking when you read the synopsis. What I'm going to tell you this book is about is that it's about pregnant women who are unaliving themselves by going into water, and it's a phenomenon. It's happening all across Lagos. Only in Lagos, pregnant women are jumping off of bridges or going to the beach and going into water. So I just want you to know what you are getting when you go into this book. Know your content warnings. I've got description box content warnings down below. So it is actually quite an intense subject matter. It's written very well though, and I'm really enjoying the book. It's not only the writing, but it's also how it's tackling the theme of loneliness. Yes, as you could expect, our main character is going to get pregnant at some point, and she is choosing to keep this baby because she feels an unending sense of loneliness, which has been with her for a very long time, but by having someone be physically part of her, she's feeling less alone, even though it's coming with so much danger, because nobody quite understands why these pregnant women who seem so happy are doing this to themselves. And I wonder if there's something more supernatural going to come in at the end. I actually have no idea where this book is going because it's just such a unique concept and it's guiding us along the story in a very unique way, but I am intrigued. I am so intrigued, and it's very, very easy to read. I actually got to halfway within the last 2 days because I also have a bit of a reading mood while I've been struggling to sleep. But yeah, today I am just going to be doing chores around the house and then going out for birthday drinks. It's my friend's birthday, so she's booked a place in a pub, and I'm gonna read. I'm gonna read and do chores in between reading pages. So hopefully I'll be back with another life update and more reading updates soon. I just finished reading session for this one and I've got about 50 pages left, and I think the pacing is still very good, but mostly I just wanted to add on to what I've been saying before. This is also very much talking about corruption and greed and wealth in Nigeria. So they are working on building a new city. She's working for some architects and they're saying who is going to be allowed in this new city and whether they are going to police and choose and handpick the people who are allowed to be in this city. And there's so much commentary on some of the corruption and politics and choices that are being made in Nigeria generally. So I do think this book also has some substance and storyline beyond the pregnant woman, which is nice to see. And then lastly, I wanted to say that the title of this book is One Leg on Earth. The whole book is really permeated with that because we are following these women who, or especially our main character, Yusoi, she is always not grounded in reality. Like, she's not here with us. She is in her dreams. She is in her mind. She feels untethered to real life. And I think I did not mention how much that is a theme in this book. And she keeps dreaming of water and like dreaming of these drowned women. And she feels like she's in an entirely different space and headspace than she is from the other people. So while it is also about loneliness, it's also about what is tethering her to humanity, which is her baby and the stories of what these women are doing. So I just wanted to mention that as well because it is a key theme in this book. I'm still really enjoying it and I'm just so glad it's 200 pages because now we're in the last 50 pages. I'm like, I don't think I could read much of the same thing for much longer. So I know that the author has made this exactly as long as it needs to be for the story that it is, but I'm very curious to see how this is all going to end. Welcome to the floor and welcome to my lower bookshelves that are not always in my videos, but I thought it's about time that I give you an update because I don't know, I'm in a good mood. I've just cleaned the flat top to bottom so everything is sparkling and shiny, and I think I'm gonna go to the cinema tonight, so I definitely need to talk about some films that I watched while I was getting my hair done. I watched 3 different things, actually 4, but I DNF'd one. So yeah, let's start with the watching update. So the first thing that I watched was The Cabin in the Woods. That was the one that I felt in the mood to watch. I didn't really know anything about this film before I started it, other than it's considered a horror staple and my older sisters really enjoyed it. And I do think if you are thinking of watching this one, that is the best way to go into it. Don't know anything about it, just dive in and know you are seeing a horror film. This was so good. 10 out of 10. I had the best experience watching this. It was so fun. It was so silly. It's like very satirical. It was a satirical horror comedy film that managed to be funny, that managed to be clever and witty, and also just have good characterization in it. So I don't know what the sun is doing. I don't know what the sun is doing, but it was a really, really good time. That's all I really want to tell you about it. And at the end there was a little bit of a nod to one of my favourite horror comedy films. Well, my favourite horror comedy film had a nod to this film that I hadn't noticed until now. So that was a pleasant surprise. And the other thing that I immediately tried to watch and then DNF'd was Eat, Pray, Love. So I read Eat, Pray, Love a couple of years ago and I really loved that book. I thought it was very, very good. And so I've always wanted to watch the film afterwards because I know a lot of people actually came to the book through the film. However, I put it on and I was bored out of my mind. That film was so dry. It was just like, I can't with this film. So I turned it off. Instead, I watched the final episode of Midnight Mass, which is something I've been watching very slowly for quite a while. I plan to watch all of the Mike Flanagan films. No, we need to do something about this lighting. Well, you can see me, even if I cannot see anything because the sun is like right in my face. But yeah, I decided to watch Midnight Mass because I want to watch all of the Mike Flanagan films or TV series, at least, maybe not films, all of his TV series, and this was so good. It's very gothic, so do expect it to be a very slow moving TV show. It took a couple of episodes before I was fully on board with it and fully immersed, and I don't like recommending things saying that the ending is the payoff and it's worth the patience, but the ending is the payoff and it's worth the patience. The ending was so good. Mike Flanagan just knows how to do aesthetic, he knows how to do brutality and horror, and a lot of this horror has to do with religious imagery and religious themes. It's very much about Catholic faith and how toxic it can be and church culture can be, and it's quite monologue heavy, which I don't mind, but I thought lots of the monologues between those who were believers and who were non-believers and what faith is really supposed to look like and where it can become horrifying was absolutely thrilling and really well handled. There was a specific conversation between a mum and a villain character, that's all I'm gonna say, and I think a lot of conservative Christians need to hear that message and need to hear that speech. So that was satisfying. There were also some like Dracula references and Shakespeare references buried in there, which chef's kiss beautiful in my opinion. And then the last thing I watched was, is this even working? Is it better if I do this, if we move away from the shells? Okay, yeah, that is actually better for me and for you. Sorry, this has been so much movement in this segment. The thing I watched was Corpse Bride, which is very well known and beloved, kind of like children, all age animation, and I didn't really like this. I'm so sorry to everybody who loves Corpse Bride. I just didn't grow up with it, and some people say that's what I needed to have done on Instagram. But I don't know, kids content these days, or like all age Disney style kind of things, just it doesn't work for me anymore. It's weird because I haven't aged out of reading middle grade books or reading young adult books, but for film I can still do teenage stuff. I love Heartstopper, but anything kids, it just isn't working for me these days. And Corpse Bride was exactly that. I just didn't believe anybody's concept of love in this. I couldn't believe that these characters had been in love. I think the main character was just like a wet towel. He didn't really understand what marriage and commitment meant, which is why he was doing it willy-nilly to everyone for the wrong reasons. I really didn't like the beginning opening singing number. That really bothered me. Just wasn't for me. The animation was beautiful, that was the best thing about it. But now that we've talked about those three things that I've watched, let me give you a book update. Because I finished One Leg on Earth and now we are halfway through this vlog with me having finished this book. I enjoyed this, I did like the ending. There are more content warnings for me to give you, so please check out down below because there are like major content warnings for how this ended. But I really liked it. I thought it was very good, but I'm not entirely satisfied with the ending. Having read the ending, this just cements to me that she is a short story writer. She is a short story writer. This felt like one long short story with lots of detail, and I really loved the themes that it touched on, and I really loved the writing style. I'm not going to give you spoilers for the ending, but I did want more answers at the ending than what we got, and I wanted more meaning from the ending than what we got. So I do think this is still a very good book. I'm giving it 4 stars if that helps you understand how much I enjoyed it, and I want to go and get Ghost Roots, which is this author's short story collection, and read that as well now. But if the ending had just been different, I think this could have been something I absolutely head over heels loved. Now, usually this is when I pick a T, but I'm not going to do that quite yet because I think I want to read more and continue motivating myself by knowing that I will be able to pick a T at some point very soon. So instead, I'm going to keep on reading, and I'm actually going to have a reading session right now. And in that session, I'm going to start reading Good Good Loving by Yvette Edwards, and this one is the multi-generational British Caribbean story following a family across 5 decades. So again, more literary fiction. This is just like Black authors only literary fiction books. I'm curious to see what this will give me. I have just been filming content, so my room is now a mess, and even though I'm reading Good Loving, I had to take my bookmark out for the content I was making, so I need to find where I was in this novel. Somewhere here. No, that's one chapter before that. There we go. So this is where I am, which is exactly halfway through this novel, and I'm going to start with the life update because that seems to be the pattern in which we do things in this particular vlog. So there was Valentine's Day, and what I did for Valentine's Day after I got my hair done is we went to a live jam music session, which was very, very cool. It was all like jazz styled live jam sessions, so there were no words, nobody knew what other people were going to play. They just had musicians who came up on the stage and they started jamming away, singing and rapping a little bit freestyle. But also a really nice thing that they did was after about 10 minutes they would swap out, so like a different drummer would come in, or a different musician would play, or a different saxophonist would come in. So they had people swapping out on the stage all the time, and it was just really nice. We went to house party again. It's becoming like one of our favorite places to go, me and this particular friend, and we had a group of people with us, so we went to house party for the rest of the night. And then the next day, once I was recovered, Simi and I went to Strictly Live Tour. So Strictly Come Dancing is a British Saturday night show that I grew up watching. We were very much a Saturday night TV family, even though we lived in the Netherlands, and it meant we would sit down and we would watch, you know, those kind of shows, Dancing on Ice, Strictly Come Dancing, Merlin, Doctor Who, all of those shows like Robin Hood that came on in that time slot, and then it was The Lottery, and then it was Holby City. We would just do that Saturday night thing as a family. We'd all be sitting down watching it together. And so as we like left the household, we would stop watching these shows. Like Corey was Saturday morning while my mum was cleaning, while we were all cleaning. So we had those routines and those practices, and so I grew up with Strictly. Simi is the only one of us who still actively watches Strictly. Even my parents don't anymore. They are the only person who watches it and absolutely loves it. They know every dancer by name, they know who has won, they know who they think is great or not, and Simi booked these tickets to go and see Strictly Live on tour, where they go on tour across the UK, and the professionals and some of the celebrities do dances live, and the judges are there to judge them live. And it was more fun watching Simi than watching it for me, just because I don't know anybody anymore. But even the judges have changed since I watched it, but one of the judges was the same, so it was kind of cool to see him. And even the like like all of the Strictly Come Dancing sounds were really familiar and nostalgic to me. And also it was just good dancing. It was fun to see good dancing. The Paso Doble was always my favorite dance, and it was really nice that I got to see one of them do a Paso Doble. And even though I don't watch Strictly, when Leighton and Leighton's partner, dance partner, was on Strictly, they kind of went viral a little bit online for having like same-sex dancers doing a particular dance, and then Leighton was there on the stage doing that dance, which is a dance I had seen online, and I was like, okay, this is very cool. And Leighton was a fantastic dancer because they also have worked in musical theatre before, and so seeing Leighton do his dances was very, very cool, I have to admit. So I really enjoyed seeing Leighton, you know, Anton Dubeck, Craig Royal Howard. I grew up with those people in it, so it was nice to see them, and it was a good show overall. Like the atmosphere and the vibe was good, and Simi was just losing their mind and having the very best time, so it was nice to go along to that with them. And then the last thing that happened that was super cool was I got invited to Alice Oseman's cover reveal of Heartstopper Volume 6, the final Heartstopper volume, and I could not believe that I got this invitation. It was also to do like created ad sponsored content, and I was just like, this is so cool. Like, what is this opportunity that has been handed to me? And so after work I went to a certain place in London where there was a big billboard up with some other influencers who are big fans of Alice Oseman and also of the Heartstopper series, and it was all covered in black, and then they revealed it and Alice was there herself as well. They gave us a very, very cool goodie bag which had like Heartstopper hats in it, the calendar which I already have but it was nice that they gave it to us, a poster in there, some sweets and other goodies that are all Heartstopper themed. But the crowning thing that we got on the top was a cover of Heartstopper volume 6 like in a postcard form, personalized and signed by Alice Oseman to us individually. It was just so cool, and I haven't been able to go to any of the events where you get to meet Alice Oseman. They just sell out so very quickly, so to be able to get like an exclusive event where there was only like 10 of us influencers and we got to actually chat to her, and I just fangirled all over her and said how important the representation in like Heartstopper and in the series meant for me, and also my friends and my family in particular was just so special. She was so nice and so lovely, and I was also there with some influencer friends that I've known before, so I got to like catch up with them as well. It was just such a lovely thing to be invited to. Thank you so much to the publisher for bringing me to be part of it. What a brilliant evening. And then my mum came after that, so I got to spend time with my mum as well. But now we are unfortunately on to talking about Good Good Loving. I am not enjoying this at all. Not enjoying it at all. So my first problem with this is the character names. These characters, I kid you not, we have CJ, we have Cece, we have Clyde, we have Claudette, we have Cassius, just flicking through, we have Clay. Do you know how many names I've just said that start with a C? What editor said that was okay? Who said that was okay? Why are there all of these characters that start with a C? And that sounds like a big cast of characters, right? That's not the cast of characters complete. There's Linus, there's Leah, there's Dumplin, there's Jocelyn, there's Wilhelmina. There's just so many characters, and that's because we are following 3 generations of family at once. We're following a mum and a dad, and we're following all of their kids, of which they had many, and then all of their kids as well, of which they've also had many, and lots of them are in like really weird relationship situations. So they've got like, you know, Dumpling is their child, but she's got a different mum, and you know, there's all these connections, and I'm lost. I'm so lost about who is who. Granted, I'm somebody who's read War and Peace. I could keep up with the War and Peace characters better than I could keep up with these, and the number one factor for that is because all their names don't start with a C, which is so annoying. Also, what I don't like about this book, I do think it's interesting in the fact that it's telling its timeline backwards to the front, because then you can see, you know, if someone's been cheating with someone, that's revealed to us first, and then we get to go a couple months back and you can see the hints of how that cheating may have started. So things like that are happening in the book, but I just can't like this depiction of black people, because there's no man in this book that is not a cheating good for nothing man. Like, there's no man, there's no good depiction of black men, and it is very much stereotype within the Black Caribbean community that all Black Caribbean men just sleep around and have loads of kids with loads of people, and they're all terrible like that. And it's just a harmful stereotype, especially in a day and age when we're trying to get like black men reading, and there's so much black and British boys in this country that need to be reading, and then it's like, oh, you should be reading, and this is the depiction of them we get. You know, this is the depiction we get. So I wouldn't have minded if like 1 or 2 of the men in this book were like that. That's fine. The fact that they are all terrible, cheating good for nothing men, like, that is my problem. It's not when it's 1 character or 2 characters. It's when we have a book with like 10 plus characters in it and all the men are like that. And also just the women as well. There's so much misogyny in this book. Casual misogyny. All of the women are conniving women who are backstabbing, who are gossipy, who treat you like one way but think about you another. There's no there's no good woman in this book, and it's just like, again, this depiction of all these black women being terrible, being gossipy, being snipey, being like under, like two-faced in some way. It's just like, is this the depiction of black women I want to read? Again, if it was 1 or 2 women in this book, but it's literally all the women except for 1 female character who are like this, all of them. And so I'm just really frustrated by the stereotypes that it's leaning into, the depiction of black women and the depiction of black men. I just don't think it's a good depiction. And the other thing I don't like about this book is that it feels, I actually took a long time for me to realize we were in England, you know, that it's so dialogue heavy. It's just characters talking to each other, talking, conversations. You're barely getting like storyline. We have no sense of place or setting. We are literally just them in this room talking, them in this room talking. I don't feel like we're in the UK. This could be set in America for all I know. And lately that's been a bit of a complaint about mine. When books feel like they are happening in a vacuum, why? in my fantasy books and my horror books, I like world building. In my literary fiction books, I want world building too. I want setting. I want to integrate it. I want to be able to, I can't actually picture anything when I'm reading, but I would like to be able to pretend that I could picture where this book is happening if I pictured things while I was reading, you know? And I just don't want like a book that's all dialogue. And the sense of characterization that we get in this is very like light-hearted characterization. It's very surface level characterization. It's like, you are this stereotype and therefore you do this, and that's all we get to know about her. You are a middle child and everything about you is going to be middle child-like. Like, there's no depth of characterization in this. What I've realized by reading to the halfway mark is that I always say like, oh, I DNF things left, right and centre. If I'm not enjoying something, I DNF it. But I've discovered a weakness in my DNFing is that if I've been sent a review copy and the publication date has not passed yet, I find it very hard to DNF because I'm like, I've been sent this for review. So I'm going to finish it very reluctantly. And the good thing about this is that it reads very quickly. At least I'm reading this mostly on my Kindle because the font is too big for me, for my personal liking. When the font's too big, I don't like it personally. I don't like it. I'd rather have small font than too big font. I like normal sized font the most. But for me, this font, that's too big for my liking. So I was approved for the e-copy on NetGalley before they sent me this physical copy. And on your Kindle, you can change the font size. So I've made it smaller and it just reads very quickly. Actually, every time I turn a page, 1% goes through. So a book that is, 271 pages in print becomes about 100 pages on the Kindle. That shows how big the writing is. So yeah, I can read it very quickly, so I'm just gonna finish it, but your girl's not having a good time. Alright, if you are wondering why the bed looks stripped down next to me, it is because we are about to go and fly to the Netherlands to go home for a bit. And that is also why there's like packing stuff on the floor behind me, because that is my hand luggage and my laptop that I'm still using before it's time to go. But it's time for me to give you a major update because lots of things have been happening. But first I want to start with the fact that I have finished reading Good Loving by Yvette Edwards, and I don't actually have much more to say on it than I said in the previous vlog update, because I did not enjoy this. I didn't enjoy one bit of this novel. I think it just goes on and on and on in the same vein with terrible male representation, everybody being terrible to each other, Ellen taking it and taking it and taking it even though she shouldn't have to, all of the female characters just taking the men be absolutely despicable, and you learn more and more of the husband's terrible things. Like every single chapter it was like another terrible thing he's done, another terrible thing he's done, another, and I'm just like, why is the wife still with him? Why is she still giving him all of these dues? And also, why are the children even on his side? Like, I just didn't understand. I didn't understand any characters' motivations. I didn't understand what was supposed to be alluring about this book, because it was literally just despicable act after despicable act, and I'm like, so that's a story, is it? And yeah, it stayed 2D the whole time. Sense of setting, where? Character development, what? Who is she? We don't know her, not in this book. So yeah, I really didn't like this, and I think if it wasn't a review copy that was out literally in March this month, I think I would have DNF'd it, and I would have been happy doing so. But let's give a life update talking about more joyful things. So thank you so much to Faber for inviting me to a None Such celebration event. This is Frances Spufford doing historical fantasy, and it's in the Sunday Times charts this week, so it's definitely done well. And the event was really nice. It was in Cahoots, which is this bar that is themed, I don't even know the era or the year, I'm so sorry, I don't do history like that anymore. I used to, but not anymore. And it's very like an old school. They played lots of like Marilyn Monroe, La Vie en Rose kind of music, and the cocktails are all themed around this. The cocktail menu even looks like an old school newspaper, and there's like it looks beautiful. I've shown you what it looks like. It looked very cool, and I got to talk to two Instagrammers who I hadn't met before ever, so it was kind of nice to meet new people at this event. And Frances Spufford himself was absolutely lovely. You know, when it's a book event, you're supposed to talk to authors all about their book, but he was so chatty and was asking me about my writing as well, and it was really lovely that he gave me the time of day. So that was a really nice event, and I'm very much looking forward to reading None Such. And then as well as that, I went to see Dracula in the theatre, and this Dracula is very interesting because it's a one-woman show with Cynthia Erivo as the main character. She plays all 28 characters, and she manages to do this by using a combination of staging, props, and then costumes, but also cameras. And that was the downside of her Dracula to me, because for this she actually spent, especially in the first half, a lot of the show with her back to the audience while she was looking at the cameras and letting the cameras bring the show to life for us. But you know, that doesn't mean the acting wasn't good. I was impressed with how many lines that she must have had to remember to be able to do an hour-and-a-half show all the way through with as much like exposition, dialogue, and scenes and movements that she included in the show. It was a feat. It was a feat to watch, and so her skill is undeniable. Her skill is so there. The cameras are up close and personal, and through the second half of the show she kind of turns towards the audience and performs to us a bit more, and in doing so you can just see how good her acting is, how phenomenal her acting is. Every time she put on a different costume and became a different character, I felt like we were talking to a different character. That's how good the skill was. And one of the very interesting choices that she made is that her Dracula had an African accent, you know? And Dracula is, you know, supposed to be a foreign entity. That's why he's from, I think, Romania. It's just like he's foreign, he's from a different world, and that cloak of mystery comes with him. And so having him be African, the accent just worked so well, and it brought a different level of like the exotic and the mysterious to his character that I found very intriguing. And I would love to read a Dracula retelling set within a country in Africa. I think it would be fantastic. The ending where it all crescendoed to was really, really good, and actually there was only 3 lines, I would say, where Cynthia Erivo sang, and because she'd done the whole performance, you know, as a theatre production and was acting, I literally forgot that she could sing until she started to sing those 3 lines, and her voice is the voice of an angel. I was just absolutely enraptured, absolutely drawn in, and I was like, oh my goodness. And it wasn't even that much singing, but I was like, I actually forgot, because of how well you were acting, that is another skill that you have and another talent. And it was very timely in how it was used in the Dracula. So overall I would say I really liked it, but less so in the way that I usually consume theatre, more so as an artistic piece and an artistic choice that was skillfully acted out. And that's how I feel about Dracula. I went to see this with my sisters and also with my friend, and then as we left the theatre we saw Todrick Hall. We saw Todrick Hall was right there. He was with his friends. He was just having a casual go to see Cynthia Erivo in the theatre like all the rest of us, and we had recently seen him in Burlesque in theatres as well, and I thought he was absolutely fantastic and smashed it. But I've actually been watching Todrick Hall on YouTube in the beginning, you know, back when he was doing his twerking in the rain days, and followed him through his like dance and like celebrity life and all of that. And so I've really liked Todrick Hall for a very long time, and then I got to go up to him and say like hello and meet him and tell him how great I talked about how much I loved his performance in Burlesque. I did not mention that I've been a fan for a very long time, because I think that would have just been too cringe, and I didn't ask for a photo or anything because he was clearly there having a casual, you know, theatre watching time with his friends, and we didn't want to impose too much, even though we did want to be like, we are massive fans. So that was very nice. But with all of that said, it is time. I think it's finally time, because we're well over halfway through this vlog, to choose a tea from the advent calendar and see what flavour we get and make and try some tea, because I could very much use some. And I think I'm going to have to take it to the Netherlands with me, actually, maybe. So, we're pulling number 4. What could number 4 give us? Let's see. Okay, let me just smell it first to see what kind of smell it gives and see if I can guess the flavour that way. This smells really normal. This smells like a normal tea. Okay, it's the Great British Cuppa. It is a normal tea. This is their classic English breakfast tea. I've actually had this many times. I think it's just because I drink classic British tea, breakfast tea, as well as all of the fun flavours that I like to try, and I went to Bird and Blenco once and I bought like 30 grams of this tea, so I just drank it steadily in loose leaf form. So I haven't actually had it in a tea bag, but I presume it's pretty much the same. I'm not going to look this up because I think it's going to be a very standard tea, so I'm not going to give you any notes, but what's in it is Indian Assam black tea, Sri Lankan black tea, and Chinese Yunnan tea. So it's a combination of like Sri Lankan, Indian and Chinese flavours to make what is called the Great British Cuppa. I just can't think of anything more British than the British tea being made up of teas from Asia, because our country loves a bit of colonization, you know, and imperialism traces being left over in this country. We love that. So I will drink this tea. I'll tell you what it tastes like, even though I've definitely had it many times before. I'm also going to tell you that we are on to our last book for this vlog, the last one we're reading, and that is If I Ruled the World by Amy DuBois Barnett. This is kind of a, you know, a literary fiction book, I guess I would say, where we follow a journalist and she kind of drops out of one magazine, goes into another. It's 1999. Nikki Rose is the only black editor on the staff of a prestigious fashion magazine, and she's thrust into a world of luxury that she's never been in before. So I've already started this and I've read the first 30 pages last night, so basically nothing, but I already feel like I've got this book hook, line and sinker. Like, I understand what this book is about, and this book is about the rich and the luxury and the wealthy being terrible to each other, so, or just doing despicable things to each other. And it's going to be very dramatic, very much like I'm a rich girl in a rich girl's world, and it's all going to be doing this from the perspective of somebody who's black, and so the world is not catered to her, the luxury life is not catered to her, but now she's in it. So what is she going to do as one of the few black people in the elite? Now, I actually don't typically like books where it's all about these very rich and wealthy people doing despicable things. I just don't find it very entertaining to read. I don't relate at all to their problems, and it's not my personal preference and interest. I know a lot of people who love a book like that. Crazy Rich Asians, I did not like that book, but other people do. So if you like Crazy Rich Asians, I think you might be able to like this book. This is that. If you like We Were Liars, you might like this book. If you like Little Fires Everywhere, you might like this book. But what I do find very unique about this book is that it's doing it from the perspective of a black woman, and that's just not something you typically see in this like genre type, or this type of book. So I'm finding that interesting, and I've only read 30 pages, so I'm not going to judge too quickly, and I'm going to keep reading and see if it holds my interest and see if maybe this manages to surprise me and I'll enjoy it more than I think. But right now we are just going steady, and I think with that I've been talking long enough, so let's go to another country. going to give you a little update on a couple of things that happened. I've been watching a lot of films and I'm not going to review all those films for you, mostly because I don't think you care enough about all the films I've been watching. I am on Letterboxd. I'll leave a link below to my Letterboxd if you are interested in my thoughts on the films. But the one I am going to talk about is Send Help. This is one that I just went to watch in the cinema, like on a whim. I hadn't seen a trailer. I knew nothing about what it was about, just that people were saying that it was good. I went in and I had a fantastic time. It is very much a film that is a blend of different genres. It has elements of horror comedy in there, but it's not like too scary. But it's also, I don't really know how to describe the film, but it is very bizarre and strange, and it just shocked me time and time again. I think because it is like an undefinable genre blend, I couldn't really predict what was going to happen, you know? It's about these two characters, one of whom is like, he is the boss, the like one who's just come into the company, and she was promised a promotion and doesn't get it, and then they end up in a plane crash and they have to like survive together. And it had elements of like female rage in it, and just like injustices against women in the workplace, but then like surviving on an island together, and then more stuff. So I'll leave you to discover it yourself. But there's pretty much two actors, Dylan O'Brien, I think it's Dylan O'Brien, and Rachel McAdams, who are the leads in this, and they did a phenomenal job. You could tell they were having fun with these roles, but also they just actually were acting so well, and I was just laughing and shocked and entertained the whole way through. So I really recommend the film. Send Help. I wanted to, you know, the B-roll has B-rolls, so you know what's happened, but I just wanted to point out the ramen and sake tasting that I did with my friend. It was such a nice evening because we hadn't caught up in a while, so we got to chat and catch up, but also we went to Hakata, which is in London Bridge. If you are in London, I highly recommend Hakata. It is my favourite place to get ramen in London, and I've had a lot of ramen. Shiryu is very good for their katsu chicken curry ramen, but Hakata makes the best ramen. Like every single thing on their menu is amazing, and I had it with extra egg, and I just want to have it again because it is that good. And they were just doing this like sake tasting thing, and I've never had a tasting of that kind, and it was nice. We had, for a decent price, 4 different ones that we could taste. We both had the same favourite and we both had the same least favourite, but it was a lot of fun and such a nice evening. And then I went to the Netherlands and I came back, and I didn't really do much vlogging there because the point of me going to the Netherlands was to have a rest and to spend time with friends and family. But the main thing I wanted to share with you is that we went to the Avolion in, is it in Eindhoven? I guess that's in Eindhoven, and I used to cycle past that like literally every day. Like that was on my route to where I needed to get every day in the Netherlands, and we cycled past it and cycled past it, and I finally went inside, and there's a museum in there, and it's called like a nature museum, but it's kind of not about, well, it is about nature, but it's also about like where nature meets technology. And that was such a great museum. It was very interactive. There were lots of different rooms you could go into, things you can pull, things you can build and do, and I just love a museum that, even if it's for adults, includes a lot of interactive elements. My favorite things that I learned were about the different creation stories and about what creation looks like across different religions and beliefs and cultures, which was fun. Of course, I knew the biblical one and quite a lot of the ones that we studied in history, but there were some new to me ones there as well. And then I loved when we got to like zoom into the future, and it speculated about what life like might look like in 50,000 years and 100,000 years and 1 billion years, and so on and so forth, although of course all speculation. And then on the very top floor, so you would go from like old beginning of the world in nature, and then each floor would take you higher in terms of like technology and nature. And so the top floor led us to the complete future, where we're attached to our phones, you can't survive without technology, and so it decides to strip it all away from us. And so there were cubby holes where you could lock your phone in, and you weren't supposed to use your phone up there. There were like yoga mats and peaceful meditation areas, and so it was a place where you're supposed to like disconnect from technology, and I quite liked that concept as well. If you are near the Avolion and you want to go to a fun museum, that's one I recommend. And now we've come to the most important part, which is where I update you on If I Had Ruled the World, which I read while I was on the flight there, the flight back, and I've been reading piecemeal by piecemeal, and I'm gonna finish it today. So this, I've described it as The Devil Wears Prada but black, and that's very much what this is giving. I don't know if I've described this already, I think I have, but she is in the fashion industry, she wants to be editor-in-chief, and she's looking after a black magazine called Sugar. And it is very much a main character who I just want to shake. She makes bad choice after bad choice. Like, she is a train wreck, and I just think we have so many books. So this is not my usual read, which I remember describing to you, and I remember just, I don't think it's the most unique book I've ever read, and it's not the most serious book that I've ever read. It's got some serious themes in it, and it does touch on like racism and especially the treatment of women in the fashion industry and in the music industry, but it is like a bit more light-hearted than some of the reads that I typically go for. And you know, Devil Wears Prada but Make It Black, that is a light-hearted pitch that I'm giving you, but I just see so many books with these white women who are going on a like downward spiral, and so many books about like white women in these like lives of luxury, and I'm just like, it's so nice and refreshing to have that from a black perspective, because I just don't see many of those kind of books done from a black perspective, you know? So even though I don't think this is the most cutting edge book, if you like those kind of books more than I do, I tend to actually typically avoid those like downward spiral, woman on a downward spiral in her 20s or 30s kind of books, because they're not for me. But if you like those books, you should read this one, because it covers the same trajectory, but it's got the fashion and music industry injected in there. And I do think that while she is a train wreck making the wrong decisions, you can see how the pressures that society put on her and what success looks like to her and the mixed messaging she's given is leading her to make the choices that she makes. So while I'm frustrated with her many times, I can completely understand how she got from A to B and why she's choosing to get from A to B. And even though she doesn't always have her values right in terms of her love life, I really like her values in terms of her work ethic and what she wants to do with her magazines. She's got the right morals. Can she apply them to herself? No, but I love seeing her fight for doing that for other people. And so I've got only 80 pages of this left now. I'm almost finished for the last book of this vlog, but I think lots of things are going to blow up in her face, or they are currently blowing up in her face. And I'm curious to see how she's going to play these people against each other, how she's going to take back her own, and whether or not she can pull off the success of this magazine. I will keep reading. Today we're gonna go and make that tea, that great British cup of tea that I need to make, and I'm gonna sit down with my tea and read the last 80 pages of this book, and then we can close up this vlog. Friends, while I was waiting for my tea, which is right here to brew, I literally read 5 more pages of If I Ruled the World, and it became very, very serious. So I'm going to leave content warnings for this one down below, but it literally just took a turn into a very serious kind of conversation, and I get why they're having it, especially within the music industry and with what's going down quite a bit right now within the music industry, and specifically within R&B and hip-hop culture industries, with some certain cases out there which you can definitely read a lot about. And there's a documentary, I believe, on Netflix. In the last 90 pages of this book, it taps into that very active and very ongoing conversation, and it also chalks up a lot of her trauma response behaviors and how she's out in these repetitive cycles with men. And so I just feel like in the space of 6 pages I've completely like readjusted my perspective on this book, which is why I'm curious to finish it and see what my final thoughts will be. But it is tackling some pretty big stuff. I've got my Great British Cuppa here, so let's just try it. Now that's some good tea. That's really, really good. Oh, well, I've had this before, you know, but I don't think I really thought about the flavour that much, and I don't typically drink builder's tea because it's not my favourite kind of tea. I like things a bit more creative than that standard, but you know, I do drink it every now and again. But this is a very good Great British Cuppa. I actually think this might be my favourite brand of like an everyday standard builder's tea. I do need to buy some builder's tea for my flat. So I just have guests who they're not like me. They don't want to drink all these random flavors I always have stocked in my cupboard. They just want a standard builder's tea, and I don't have anything to offer them. Sometimes I get Yorkshire tea in, but like I don't really like the Yorkshire tea. But this, it's a bit pricier because it's Bird & Blanco, but I'll get this in. And that said, let's get down to reading the finishing bits of this book. I'm here to close up this episode of Half the Haul, but before I do so, I wanted to share my thoughts on a couple of things that have happened, but you know, they happened a while ago, but I still think it's worth sharing my thoughts on them. So first of all, I want to talk about the Pushkin Press event. So Pushkin Press is a publisher and they specialize in translated fiction, but they also do like literary fiction as well, and I was invited to their influencer event and it was really nice. It was so lovely. There were a lot of literary reading influences there, and it meant I just got to catch up with a different crowd of people because I'm usually in the SFF side of things, and I do still read literary, so it's also nice when I get to see my literary reading friends. And yeah, the conversations were great, the interviews were very good, and I thought I was being controlled with the proofs that I selected. They had so many copies there that we could choose from. I didn't take one of everything, but I still ended up with way too many books. So Half the Haul episode, the one after the one you're gonna see, is gonna be intense as well, I think. And then in one of my Half the Haul episodes, I was like, I'll share my thoughts on Bridgerton season 4 because I'll definitely finish it in that vlog, and then I did not. So now you're gonna get my season 4 thoughts, and that is that I really enjoyed this season. I think it brought us back to what is, you know, core Bridgerton. Season 3 really went off the rocker for me. There were too many side stories, there was too much happening and not enough focus on the romance, whereas this really brought back the focus on the romance and on our main couple, which is what I really liked. It honed in on the Bridgerton family, which is what it's all about, and yes, I do love a side story, you just need to be selective with what they are, and I love the side stories that they chose. Don't get me started on Lady Danbury and the Queen. Like, I could not deal with any of their scenes. They made me an emotional mess and I'm still not over it. Lady Danbury is one of my favourite characters in Bridgerton, so I'm definitely not over that. But at the same time, there was a lot of focus on Francesca's storyline as well as Benedict's and Sophie's, and I just really loved how, you know, a certain topic is something I'm interested in and they did it so well here, and it kind of hit home all the more. Have I talked about it in this vlog? I can't even remember which vlog I've mentioned what, but yes, I was reading a book that was running up to like a grief anniversary, and then we were watching this series, and so that just me and Sydney had some times while watching this season. Just did that so very well, and it had such a nice parallel to Benedict and Sophie's storyline. Like, what is love about? What really matters? And it makes you reflect on that in that storyline without, you know, imposing too heavily on that. You can have things be happy and sad at the same time, and that balanced it perfectly. In terms of Benedict and Sophie's relationship, I did like it. The first half of the season, it felt a bit simplistic because it is a retelling, but then in the second half of the season, it kind of delved into more of the nuance, and I really liked that. And I think if you look back on the season as a whole, very well done in terms of romance. But if, you know, I had to pick a favourite part, the last 4 episodes were significantly better than the first 4 in my opinion. I can't forget the mum storyline. I loved Violet, I think her name is. I loved her storyline. I love when I see parents learning from their children. I love it being about being older and widowed and what does love look like in that situation. I think this was a very good season, and I really can't wait for the next one. I think it's going to be quite groundbreaking, and I love that, and I'm very disappointed in a lot of the conversations I'm hearing online. It's hard to define whether the conversations are racist or homophobic or both, you know, it's one of the 3, you know, and it's very disappointing to see it on such a large scale. Unsurprising, because I know Bridgerton is also popular in America, so a lot of people saying those comments are American, but it's not only the Americans, you know, and it's not like this is out of the blue. That's what I'll say on that here right now. Now we are here for the grand finale, which is my final thoughts on If I Ruled the World, and I have to say those last 80 pages absolutely knocked it out of the park. I really loved where this book went, how it ended, and how realistic it was. It was not what I expected when I got there. Like, when we got to the ending, I was like, I did not expect it to end this way, but it shows that your happily ever after might not look what you think your happily ever after looks like, and I appreciate that a lot. And it tackles, it's the reality, you know, it's the reality of what this kind of subject can end in and how people react to this kind of subject. The only thing I didn't particularly love was the romance, and there's like a lot of love drama in this, and she goes through various relationships and we see her in not so great relationships, but I didn't really like the origin of where the final relationship comes from, but I can see how it is still done right. I just don't personally love it. But that aside, I do think this is a really good book. It touches on some lighter end stuff, but it also touches on some hard-hitting stuff, and it puts things through a black lens that just I never really get to see put through a black lens in this type of genre and space. And so even though I don't really read this genre in space, as I said, I think I would read more of it if we had more black authors writing in that space, or more black stories in this space. And that just goes to show how important it is for you to be able to relate and empathize with a character. That's not me saying that all, you know, the white girl 20s 30s going on a downward spiral trying to make it in their career choice books are worthless. I still read them even though I can't relate to them, but it's nice when it's refreshing when you get to read one that you can relate to, and everybody deserves that opportunity. If I saw a book like this and it had an Asian lead in it, I would pick it up and read it, or like a Latin lead, I would read that as well. So it's just, I feel like we've made ins and spades in terms of diversity, but sometimes I still feel like we got a long way to go. This was so good, and what a great way to end this vlog, because I feel like I've read mostly bangers for this video. So thanks for joining me for another episode of Half the Haul. I'm sorry it took so long to get to you, but it's here now. Please let me know in the comment section down below, what was the last book that you read and enjoyed that you hauled this year? And if you haven't read any of the books that you've hauled in this year, tell me why that is. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button if you want to see more, and don't forget to hit that notification bell to be updated every time I have a new video. And you know what they say, onwards and upwards. Excelsior!